Thank you for staying with us. Time now to get into our big stories. One major big story, but others that we're going to be contemplating this morning on the AM show. And the major one has to do with the AMERI Power Plant. Stakeholders are asking government to allow the VRA to operate the plant per the 2016 agreement. The Africa Center for Energy Policy is worried about government's decision to enter into a sole-sourced agreement with Miscellaneous Company SA, South Africa, to transport and operate the AMERI Power Plant. Now, the energy think tank says the deal is not financially sound and further alleges that it has been bloated by millions of cedis. We'll be getting into that all-important discourse with Kojo Yaoche, policy lead at ASEP, John Jinapo, former Deputy Energy Minister, and Kojo Poku, an energy analyst. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation this morning. Hello, Mr. Poku. Hello, Mr. Yaoche. Hello, Mr.
Yeah, Ben, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. So I assume that is Kojo Poku.
Yes, that's Kojo Poku. It's been a while I joined the Ben and Burn meeting.
Well, it's been a while. We had the privilege of having you on board. Let me start with you, Kojo. So we'll have a lot to say about this. We'll also have to touch on the LPG situation as well, among other dynamics. But when it comes to this latest release by ASEP and everything that they've been saying about the Miscellaneous South Africa deal, what is your basic knowledge? I know you followed this since the years preceding. What is your basic understanding of the situation? And is Miscellaneous actually doing any damage to us in terms of coming in? Is the contract a good one? Just give a basic, background to the question. We'll be getting into other details moving forward.
Okay, Ben, thank you. I think we have to give a bit of a background and education to this transaction. AMERI being moved to Kumasi or the Ashanti region area is something that some of us have supported. I don't think that the question being asked is that anybody is against AMERI being moved to Kumasi. For us, I think that power plant or the enclave being set up in the Ashanti region will be a good thing for the economy in the Ashanti region, because when we set up the power enclave in Takoradi, we are all seeing the benefits that it has accrued to the people of that area. So I think having the AMERI plant moving to Kumasi or the Ashanti region and creating a power enclave is a good thing that would also bring aboard other auxiliary benefits to the people of Ashanti region. So I'm sure you're also considering
the fact that the Ashanti region has had its fair share of power crises in recent months and over a year now, and that this should also help stabilize the system, especially those who use electricity commercially, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think it has all the benefits. And I said, for nothing at all, let's look at also the secondary benefits, okay? The primary benefit is having a power generation in the Ashanti region area. And also, the secondary benefit will be the jobs and all the benefits, the real estate and everything that will come up as a result of having such an industry in the Ashanti region. So those are the good things that we should all praise, that the initiative of creating a power enclave in the Ashanti region is a good thing. I don't think anybody is against that. Now, the second part is the education on the cost. Now, the cost is not, somebody say, but you are moving generating plants, how come it's costing this much? It is not just the transportation that is in the amount. There is a lot of EPC work. They have to build a switchyard. They have to build the enclave. They have to basically do piling on the ground, concrete, where the big generators will sit on. There's a lot of engineering, electrical work that has to go on. All that, plus moving the actual physical 10 machines from Takoradi to the Ashanti region is what is making up the cost of the over 30 million. So that education is
so for you from the start, you see some logic. There is some rationality in this upsurge in the pricing, because people are saying, how come initially Miscellaneous South Africa gave us a figure that was what, $25 million thereabouts, and for which we should have ordinarily sought a discount or some rebate. Then fast forward a few years down the line, we're going back to them, and instead of getting a discount, we're rather seeing an uptick in the price. What would account for the differences, even in terms of transportation?
I don't want to go into that side yet because I haven't seen the breakdown. And I don't think a lot of us have seen the breakdown of the costing. Parliament, I think my big brother, John Jenapor, has asked through Parliament for the Ministry and VRA to present that to Parliament. I haven't seen the breakdown, but I'm just saying that when somebody here, it's an education that I'm given. When somebody hears that you are transporting a plant, AMERI from Takoradi to Kumasi, and it's 35 million, they think that it is the actual transporting alone that's 35 million. I'm trying to give a bit of an education that there is engineering work, there is site preparation, and there's a lot of work that goes on, not just the actual physical transporting of the end engines that is costing the over 30 million. So I'm just giving that background. Then that said, we move to the structure of the transaction. What all of us, and ASEP is right to point out, everybody is really becoming to now ask questions, is the structure of the transaction. We are seeing that is the ministry that is leading the negotiation, trying to sign the contract and all that. And some of us feel that it should be VRA that should do that. Now, Miscellaneous has been the one that has been operating the plant in Mecca. Yes, but the point is, if they have been given a sole source, okay, to basically be the one to move the plant, because we are being told that they are advancing or pre-financing the process, which for me is what gave them the single source window, why PPA agreed that they should do a single source because they are pre-financing the process. If that is the case, then some of the questions coming up, which is Miscellaneous action for a standby letter of credit, should not be the case. So those are some of the concerns that the civil society space have. It's really to do with the structure of the transaction, not the whether it's needed or should it be done or not. I think it should be done, but it's the structure that we should look at as well.
All right. Thank you for bringing me those details. Let me also bring in John Jenapor, who is a doyen in the energy sector, former deputy energy minister, into the conversation. Mr. Jenapor, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Thank you very much. I hope my voice is audible.
Your voice is audible. We both sound a bit tired, but I know it. I am. I can tell. I can tell. Forgotten country. But let's quickly take your fundamental views about this entire enterprise. So 2016, I mean, even earlier, the AMERI deal when we were in the throes of an energy crisis and all of that. We brought in AMERI, a $510 million deal, which was a boot situation. And it was supposed to last a period of about 5 years for AMERI to recover its own costing and all of that. And then the transfer was to happen under certain circumstances. But here we are now being told that the deal worth about $25 million as far as the miscellaneous component, which came in later, was concerned, has now shot up to over 30 million. And we're also talking about the fact that the VRA, instead of bringing in miscellaneous, the VRA can play some of these localized roles. I just want your fundamental understanding of what has happened between the start of AMERI and now. We couldn't meet the 2020 target. It had to be pushed to 2021, December, and all of that. What exactly has happened up to this point? And do you have any concerns about how we're handling the miscellaneous angle to the conversation?
Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, we have serious problems with this whole transaction and agreement. Very, very serious problems. And let me assure you, the minority side will take this up to the highest level and wouldn't relent on that.
Where the highest level would be what? Where the highest level would mean what?
Using every parliamentary process to ensure that the right thing is done. Because we have
does that mean you're going to frustrate the process in Parliament?
not frustrate, ensure that the right thing is done. We want the right thing done. This country, we must learn to do the right thing. So we're going to use every available tool at our disposal to ensure that there's full disclosure, there's value for money audit, the processes are duly followed. But let me just lay this foundation quickly. Like you rightly said, it's a good agreement. It was a 5-year agreement. Ghana government was not supposed to make any financial commitment or outlay. What will happen is AMERI will bring the plant, and then as they sell the power, based on the tariff structure, they would recoup their money, and after 5 years, the plant becomes a property of the Republic of Ghana. Of course, like we said, there were some issues, and so it was extended to 6 years. 6 years is elapsed, the money has been paid, and so the plant is the property of the Republic of Ghana. If you look at our correspondence with VRA in 2015, what we envisaged was that VRA would understudy the plant operation, and then after the 5 years, VRA would then assume ownership of the plant and manage it. And this is a General Electric plant. VRA engineers are very, very familiar with GE plants. And so what we were expecting is that after this period, what government would be to transfer the plant to VRA. VRA has the technical competence. In fact, the ministry only came in because we had an emergency, like you rightly said. It's not the job of the ministry to be going into power purchase agreements and contracting power plants and all. So our fundamental position is that transfer the plant to VRA. Let VRA take ownership of the plant. And then they would decide if they need a third party, like miscellaneous or whichever group, to engage them and maybe build capacity with them. So I have an issue. The fundamental issue is, why is the ministry and government still keeping the plant?
And I was about to ask you exactly that, but what do you think could account for the transfer not being done to the local entity, the VRA, as per initial plans? Why do you think that is happening? Is it that the VRA's capacity has been hobbled in any way between the time period, or do you feel there could be something at play?
We met VRA as a committee, a mines and energy committee. The engineers of VRA were clear that they have the capacity to manage the plant. They are managing TAPCO, they are managing TICO, they are managing KTP, they are managing T3, they are managing several other plants, some of which are even more complex than this. This is a modular plant, 10 plants. Even if one is down, the rest would work. And this is a plant that runs on gas. It's easier running these thermal plants on gas than on light crude. VRA has managed far more complex machines than this one. So managing this plant is not difficult at all. So the technical issue has been settled. Now the financial issue. The ministry has written to VRA that they don't have money to establish a common LC. And that is VRA that has the financial capacity to establish the LC. So the ministry has gone ahead to sign an agreement with miscellaneous, and then turn around to VRA and say, we don't have money. Our financial situation is very bad. So you establish an LC on our behalf for miscellaneous. I mean, what kind of crooked way of doing things is this? It's just not tidy. Sometimes you just have to be honest and frank with ourselves that what we are doing is bad. Then the issue of value for money. Is there a value for money audit? Who did the value for money audit? Why would they shoot up from the 24, 25 to 30 something? And the letter I'm reading says that, please, even as we speak, let me just read it for you. It says, as you are aware, the Ministry of Energy has secured approval from the PPA to sign a single source miscellaneous agreement with miscellaneous for an EPC contract at a total cost of 35.6 million. That is one. And the O&M contract at a cost of 1 million a month for 3 years. So we are not just dealing with 35 million. The 35 million is the EPC, the construction. Move the plant from Atuabu to Kumasi. That costs 35. But there's an O&M, $1 million every month. That is 12 million a year for 3 years. So 36 million. I mean, why would you go and do this?
And that just has to do with operation and management.
That is it. That's O&M is operation and maintenance.
Maintenance,
or operation
right.
and management. Anyhow you choose to call it. But why? Then the issue of approval. Under Article 1815 of the Constitution, it is clear that when any state agency or institution is going into an agreement with an international body, and we've all established that Miscellaneous is an international company, you must seek parliamentary approval. You have not gotten parliamentary approval, and yet you are asking VRA to establish an LC for them. What if you do not get that parliamentary approval? Is that not causing financial loss?
What would be the implications, for example, if they were not to secure parliamentary approval on this, as they've already started rolling out processes? What could this mean? Clearly, a judgment debt? Is that what the implication would be?
It's even illegal. You can't do that. Because you need parliamentary approval to make that contract valid. Until you secure parliamentary approval, there's no contract. All you have done are your intentions. And so the Attorney General, when I was minister, would always write to us that in negotiating the contract, do not sign, at best just initial, and put a clause there which states that this contract can only become effective upon securing parliamentary approval. You've not secured parliamentary approval, and the minister was brought to parliament. You know, we raised this earlier before ASAP even, and let me commend ASAP for a very, very good job. I mean, they are doing a fantastic job. The minister came to parliament and said he hasn't signed the contract. He's still going through the process, and that he will come to parliament for approval. You've not come to parliament for approval, but you are establishing an irrevocable letter of credit for Miscellaneous. Irrevocable. I mean, this is illegal. And so we'll be writing to VRA, we'll be writing to the ministry, and copy the Attorney General and the President, and caution them, and raise all these issues. We intend doing that today as the minority side.
And speaking of this illegality and that irrevocable clause that has been put in there, that would be quite a concern, as ASAP has mentioned, and for the minority as well. But would that mean that you have plans of hauling Energy Minister Matthew Opoku Prempeh before Parliament to answer questions on this?
Not just that. We might ask for a full parliamentary inquiry or parliamentary probe.
A full parliamentary inquiry or probe?
Probe into this. You can do that. We are likely to move that. I'm not the leader in Parliament. I'm the leader of the minority side on the mines and energy. And this is my proposal to leadership. I'm trying to reach the chief whip so that we'll take this matter up and escalate it. But we are saying that let's do the right thing.
Right.
What is so special about Miscellaneous that you have to source them? What is so special about them?
But you see, when it comes to this issue of sole sourcing, I mean, during your administration's tenure, we've been told so many things about the adequacy of same in certain circumstances. Is this not one of those circumstances? And does it, raise red flags simply because it is being so sourced? Is that the concern?
Don't forget that a minister was dismissed because of the same company. If you recall, AMERI Relocation, it's this same company.
You're talking about Wache Jako.
Yes, that created a huge problem and the minister was dismissed. So when you are dealing with such a company or its affiliates, you ought to be very, very cautious and tactful. Look, if you have a situation where the cash waterfall is a guarantee for payment, any bank in Ghana will give you that money. Take it from me. Once the cash waterfall is the guarantee for payment, any bank in Ghana that you approach will be more than willing to give you this 30 or 35 million. Because there's guaranteed payment. So this issue that they are giving you money and all that is neither here nor there. Because the LC by itself is an instrument, it's a financial instrument that guarantees payment backed by the cash waterfall. This doesn't meet standards.
It doesn't meet standards. Before I move on to ASAP and Kojo Yauche, I just want to find out from you. Do you feel then that there could be some overarching interests in all of this that are pushing this deal through? Because to all intents and purposes, from everything you've said, it would not necessarily be practical the way we are going, which is reflected by ASEP's release. But then what do you feel could be the undercurrent of interest that could be pushing this forward?
First of all, clearly, you can see some individual interest in that. Because all you need
individual interest leaning towards where? Leaning towards where? The sector minister? What? I mean, which interests?
I do not want to personalize it. I want to look at the process. I want to look at the issues. I want to deal with the germane issues. That in this country, there are processes and procedures that all of us ought to follow. The Procurement Act, and especially the Public Financial Management Act, is very, very clear. And so I'm cautioning the minister, I'm cautioning VRA and all those who are going through this route. There are consequences. Please go and read the laws very well, read the Constitution, read the Public Financial Management Act, and ensure that you do the right thing. If everything is above board, if what you are doing is genuine, if what you are doing is transparent, why can't you just come to Parliament? I mean, why? What prevents you from coming to Parliament?
Good question. Let me hold you just there. Let me bring in Kojo Yauche. He is policy lead, petroleum and conventional energy at ASEP. Kojo, a very good morning to you, if you can hear me.
Good. Yes, I can hear you. Good morning.
Right. Let's take a quick look at this scenario. We've already laid the background to it, dating back to 2016 and then even the Boakye Ejako element. But you raised significant questions about the protection of the interest of Ghana as an entity. And in your release, you have quite a number of points beneath this allusion. Let me just run a few of them by you. First of all, you asked, what was the basis for the Ministry of Energy relieving AMERI of its obligations under Section 26 of the BOOT agreement approved by Parliament, even before an independent condition assessment of the plant was conducted? And that is something that is re-echoed by the former Deputy Energy Minister. Then you say in point B, given that METCA or the PPR or Miscellaneous was not a party to the BOOT agreement, how was the company going to be held responsible for the transfer of commitments under Section 26 of the BOOT agreement? Again, a legal twist. And C, what was the benefit to Miscellaneous for assuming the risks of the commitments under Section 26 of the said agreement? We note particularly that the transfer of title agreement did not contain any liabilities for delivering on the commitments. I want you to break this down for us, because AMERI had its own obligations, which it had to meet in terms of even ensuring that at the point of transfer, the plant met certain standards. You say those standards have not been met, that Ghana is being given the short end of the stick. Break this down for us for proper understanding.
Good morning to your listeners, and I want to thank the Honorable Jinapo for laying a very good foundation. It seems this morning we are all singing from the same hymn book. The BOOT agreement has some conditions that has to be met before the transfer of the plants to the government of Ghana. And those conditions are based on a certain independent assessment that should be done to ensure that everything meets the equipment manufacturer standards, as we have indicated in our statement. Now, before that independent assessment could be done to show whether the plant is in good condition, the minister wrote to AMERI that it had agreed with Miscellaneous to do whatever rectification works to put the plant in good condition. So I am waiving your responsibility under the BOOT agreement to do those works.
But that is rather curious, right? Because per the original agreement, AMERI was supposed to do all of this at no cost to us, to the state, Ghana. So that is very curious.
Yeah, it is. That is why we are asking the questions that, I mean, what is the benefit to Mytileneous in this case? And now it is becoming evident that because they wanted to sole source the agreement, the EP, both the EPC and the O&M agreements to them, that is why they made all of these arrangements. Now, whatever.
So basically, I'm sorry I keep interjecting. But basically, this was to get them in from that back door, that like you're suggesting, so that moving forward, it would make sense to continue with Mytileneous. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. So that now every cost that Mytileneous incurs in trying to put the plants into order will be recovered from the new arrangements that they are trying to enter, which is additional cost to the state. Because the independent assessment that was done eventually showed that 4 of the plants needed rectification works. And the question we were asking is, if AMERI, before the independent assessment was done, was let go, absolved of their responsibility, then who is paying for that rectification works to be done? And it is now showing that Mytileneous, if they get it done, they will recover it from the new contract. That is why, I mean, the question you asked, why sole sourcing, it is now becoming clear that is why they want to sole source it to them. Because if you have this arrangement with these people and you go and give it to somebody else, then how do you pay for it? So the whole, like Honorable Jinapor said, the whole thing doesn't look clean. The whole process is tainted from who is leading the negotiations. I mean, the minister told Parliament that it's VRA that is leading the negotiations. But from the letters that the Honorable Jinapor was reading to you, it's clearly the ministry that has set its own deal up and have packaged it and sent it to VRA that, now that we are done with this, can you provide some guarantees for us to be able to commit the people to do the agreement, which is not something that should be done in this country. We are very more interested in the process of how things are done in this country. We, number one, are even against the relocation of the plants to the Middle Belt. I mean, there are far better alternatives of achieving power stability in the Middle Belt. And we have always been cautioning government that you could retool the transmission infrastructure. The Pogwasi Aomasu line, for example, 33 kV. If you strengthen that, you do that upgrade, right, you bring more stability to the Middle Belt. We were also exploring the idea of
Mr. Yauche, I seem to be losing your sound. It seems to be dipping a bit.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Right. So there are options for government to do this at a cheaper cost. Because if you move these plants to Kumasi now, you are now going to talk about how do you get fuel supply to them. Moving the plants to moving fuel, gas to Kumasi, you are going to build more pipelines. And the government is going to subsidize the gas that is going there. All of it at a cost to the state. The power sector, like we've always been saying, is bleeding from debt already. So we don't need much of this additional unnecessary costs that keeps piling from suboptimal decisions that are being made in the energy sector.
Now, beyond the likelihood of a judgment debt, per the decision by the state, Ghana, our energy ministry, and others, to basically allow AMERI to wash its hands of its contractual obligation that was required before Mytileneous came into the picture, they then drew down their letters of credit to the sum of about $14 million. What this implies is that beyond the judgment debt, if Mytileneous fails to deliver, the buck stops with the state, Ghana. We will have to bear the brunt of the cost. How dangerous exactly would that be in terms of this deal?
I mean, as it is now, we have no formal agreement with Mytileneous on doing the rectification works. The nature of that agreement is not known to anybody. Maybe when in the final contract, that is where they will put it. So the liability is already on government to do those works on the units of those plants. So if the deal falls through, obviously government has to, if it intends to continue with the works, if it intends to continue with the relocation, government have to foot that bill, which we currently don't have. So the liability is already on government. Whether the deal goes through or not, we are still going to pay. And if it goes through, they are thinking of recovering that from the cash waterfall mechanism, which means that, I mean, we are, all of us as power users are going to pay for it. It will reflect in the tariffs that we'll have to pay. That is the kind of liabilities that we are bringing onto ourselves.
Let me move on to Kojo Poku. You've heard quite a lot from Honorable Jenapo as well as Mr. Yaoche. What is your reaction? Because you started off on the tangent of the cost and what other elements could go into the costing of same shooting up from around 25 point something million dollars to about $36 million. And you introduced the element of miscellaneous coming in at this time with the different cost factors to manage this for about 3 years, and then also taking on the supposed liabilities of AMERI as far as the operation and maintenance, as far as dealing with the plant to make it fully ready for transportation from Obuasi to Kumasi to meet other power fluctuation considerations. But the point is, when you listen to what has been said, and you listen to the dynamics when it comes to the likelihood of a judgment debt, when it comes to what would fall on us, the financial onus that will fall on us should miscellaneous fail, do you feel this is worth it? Hello, Kojo Poku.
That's my brother. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. So let me start off on this tangent. It's very unfortunate that my brother from ASEP says that he's objecting or he's against the relocation of the plant to AMERI. It's very unfortunate he would say that. I think let's look at this transaction in its context. The structure requiring the ministry to bring further and better particulars to the public discussion for us to understand that there is no ill transaction. But I don't think that Ashanti is only about transmission line. Okay, like I said earlier, creating a power enclave in Ashanti region is something that has a secondary benefit. So it's unfortunate he's saying that he's against that, but there are benefits that will come to Ashanti that some of us are pushing for. Let's put that aside. Look, I am 100% for the ministry coming and giving further and better particulars. Two, I think that
so you agree that as of now there is a paucity of information and the ministry must act swiftly in closing those gaps when it comes to information?
Yes, 100%, because most of these things is only when Honorable Jenapo acts at the committee level that some of these information started coming up. So the ministry, for me, I have been informed, and I was informed that it was VRA that was leading the transaction. But as we are now aware, it's the ministry that is taking a leading role and only asking VRA for a standby letter of credit. Now, let me...
Hello, Mr. Poku, we are losing you. I do not know whether that is Kojo Poku, but we appear to have lost him. But he was making the point. I just want to quickly confirm with you, Mr. Yaoche, before I move on to John Jenapo. Did you suggest, I may have missed that you are technically or fundamentally against the moving of the AMERI plant to Kumasi? Did you say that?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, the reason government is given for doing that is to inject some stability. Because somewhere last year, we were having a lot of voltage problems in Kumasi. The lights keeps going on and off. So government wanted some generation there to provide stability. And we have always maintained that there are better options of achieving that than moving a plant from Obuasi to Kumasi. I mean, this planning, we feel, does not take into account the demand dynamics or the demand profile of the country. I mean, if you look at how much power is consumed and you segregate it, why would you want to take, and it's not only AMERI that government wants to move to Kumasi, it wants to move car power, it wants to move, not even move, a new car power plant there, a new AXA plant there, and a new VRA plant there, all of which is going to somewhere around 900 megawatts generation in the middle belt. And this is a government that has always complained about excess capacity payments that it is incurring. How much power is being consumed in the middle belt to the extent that you want to generate about 1,000 megawatts in the middle belt? Who is going to pay for that? So sometimes we have to take a pause and look through the options. Who is planning the demand in the power sector? Yesterday, okay, I heard a minister say that, I mean, if you look at the power supply plan, for example, they mentioned that you need. It is because government has consistently said I want to move it there. So the technical people have stopped thinking beyond what government is proposing to them, instead of finding more technically sound options, alternatives that is not going to cost us this much. That
point made by way of explanation. We have Kojo Poku back. Kojo, so you heard Mr. Yauche giving some explanation. He feels, looking at our energy mix, looking at the situation in the country, why even move this to the middle belt? And that we should take a chill pill when it comes to some of these movements, because guess what? In the end, it is added on cost that the national kitty simply cannot deal with currently. Maybe you can take a quick look at that before you move on with the point you were making.
Hello, Ben, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, Ben. Look, brother shouldn't go into that conversation. This relocation of plants to the middle belt is not this government's implementation. It's a technical report. My brother Jonapho will tell you 100% that it is something that Greco and all technical people have come up with.
Point made. It doesn't matter whether it's a technical report. The point is, if it's not necessary, relevant, why go ahead?
Let me land on this. We have all our generation in the shores of the country. For even security reasons, it is not prudent to have all our generation in the shores of the country. So moving generation to the middle belt is something that all technical advice to all governments have been that we need to establish our enclaves in the middle belt. So let's not move into that conversation. It does that, it basically spoils what we are trying to discuss. Okay, because it doesn't make the augur well with the point of view that he's saying that he's against the relocation or creating power enclave. When we created power enclave in what was in Takrady? What was Takrady's power consumption when we created power enclave in Takrady? We shouldn't go there. Let's look at the structure of the transaction that we have it and correct it if it's wrong. Okay, that is where we should focus our concern, not where government decides to relocate power plants.
On the other point you were making.
Okay. So now, the other point I'm trying to make is this. Look, the structure of the transaction, which is the government, miscellaneous asking government to provide a standby letter of credit. For me, I think it's 100% erroneous for miscellaneous to ask government to provide standby letter of credit, especially when that is one of the conditions that they were giving the sole sources. Okay, now, if the government of VRA has 35 million or 71 million standby letter of credit, then they can use that money to do the work. They don't need you miscellaneous. Okay, because when you go to the bank to ask for LC, the bank will put a lien on your money and then give you an LC. So if I have the money in the bank, why do I need you to advance me the money? So miscellaneous should relook at the transaction. If they want to do it, they should stop asking for standby letter of credit, because for me, that ask in its own defeats the purpose why we took them on as a sole source company. And they should, if they want to do the work, they should do the work and forget the SLP.
Is it a demonstration of bad faith for miscellaneous to do this about turn? Is it a demonstration of bad faith?
Well, I was not part of the negotiation, so I don't know the initial conversation and what it turned into to say that it's bad faith. But what I was making earlier is that the advisors at the ministry should help the political leaders. Look, I don't think the minister has any intention that, oh, I will bring in a company who's going to advance me money, and later when the company come and ask me for SBLC, I knew about that. I don't know, I was not there. But the technical advisors, the financial advisors at the ministry, at Ministry of Finance, should be able to tell the minister that, look, an SBLC is a cash instrument. Okay? If I give you an SBLC, it means I have the money. That's why I'm giving you an SBLC. So if I have the money, why do I need you to advance me the money? Okay? So for me, that is the structure of the transaction needs to be looked at. And that is why we keep telling government and the ministries that, look, involve civil society in some of these things. We can point out certain things to you that you might not be able to be aware of initially. So for me, look, we've given miscellaneous, no contract has been signed. So I don't think no contract has been signed, no money has been spent. Any judgment debt is in the air yet, because we've not committed ourselves in the form of a contract. Okay? But I personally think that VRA should be the one to basically run. Like my brother Jinapo said, if VRA feels that they need to engage miscellaneous to basically help them do certain work while the plant is relocated, or for them to relocate, whatever, but VRA should be the lead, not the ministry.
Kojo, hold for me there. Let me bring in John Jinapo. Interesting thoughts that have been shared thus far. And before I get to the VRA end, before I get to the technical arrangements, how the VRA has managed such entities since the 1990s and why maybe it may be the best fit, and we get into what staff of the GRA, senior staff, have been saying. How do you react to this? Because Kojo Poku says, listen, it's up in the air to even think about any judgment debt situations. As of now, we are not there yet. But also consider the June 15, 2022 parliamentary presentation as far as the Ministry of Energy is concerned, and the fact that the AG, the Attorney General, had gone through the said documents and giving it his stamp of approval. Does that not mean there shouldn't be any legal impediments basically moving forward on this deal?
Let me just deal with some quick issues. First of all, I think that both Yaoshe and Kojo have a valid point when it comes to the relocation. But what you want is a resilient power system that is stable, that is reliable. And more importantly, you want to reduce the losses. For us to wheel power from one location to another, you know, as energy is transported, there's resistance. So one idea is that take the plant to as close as possible the center of consumption. So put it in Kumasi, it boosts the power, it gives you some resilience. Yahweh is also saying that you can equally do that by strengthening the transmission system. For instance, if you have a 161 kVA line and you upgrade it to a 330 kVA line, you can wheel much more power, it's much more effective, it's much more resilient. Or if you boost the substations, the main transformers, the primary transformers, they can equally do that. So I think that on both scores, they all have a point. It's left for the ministry. And the technical issues follow the policy. So if government's policy is that, for instance, we want to go gas, we don't want to do light crude, then the technical people then have to take our policy that we are moving from light crude oil to a gas era and do the technical analysis. So always policy informs the technical work. So I think that we shouldn't split heads over that. Both of them have a valid point. And sometimes you take decisions not based on accounting of financial profit, but on economic profit. And when it comes to economic profit, you're going beyond just profit and loss and looking at the other issues, opportunity cost, comparative advantage, and all those issues. So let's discuss it. Now, the other point I want to make is that we've had 6 years, and as a country, you see, we're all growing, so we must learn. We knew that AMERI will hand the plant over in 6 years. What were we doing as a country? Because the minister says VRA doesn't have the technical capacity. I disagree with him, but I'm saying that assuming, without admitting that VRA did not have the technical capacity. So for the 6 years, couldn't we have trained our VRA staff to take over the plant? That's a failure of all of us.
Especially knowing the terms and conditions of the contract.
That is what I'm saying. We knew. It's not like it just sprang up on us. We've had 6 clear years. GRS engineers are one of the best. In fact, during my time, Sierra Leone, about 4 other countries came to Ghana pleading with us that we should second some of our engineers to come and help them. And VRA, we can even export know-how. So I'm saying that for 6 years, you couldn't do anything, only to wait. So this issue of technical capacity doesn't come. The second one he says is financial. If you look at what is happening, it's obvious that VRA rather has the financial capacity. Because eventually you are falling on VRA to establish the LC. And they can only establish the LC if their balance sheet is good. And because of the ESLA levies and payments, VRA's books are beginning to get better now. And when you have the cash waterfall as a backstop to pay, you can easily raise that financing. So I think that this issue doesn't come in. Now we said, oh, there's no financial outlay yet. There's no agreement. If there's no financial outlay, there's no agreement. Why ask VRA to establish the LC? That's a critical question. You don't have a formal agreement. Your agreement with miscellaneous hasn't kicked in yet. And yet you are establishing an LC in their favor. I mean, it defies logic for me. It doesn't make sense. So please, let's all learn from these issues and do what is right. It may be true that the Attorney General has issued a certain legal opinion or whatever. But you see, we've been entrusted with a position. Let's learn to do the right thing. Let's learn to do what is right and proper. If you ask me, for instance,
is that to suggest that what is being done now is wrong and improper?
Oh, there's everything wrong with it. Even if you listen to my friend Kojo says that he disagrees that an LC should be established for AXA. In fact, all of us, if you listen to the 3 of us, everybody has one issue or the other with this whole agreement. So it's not tidy. It's not tidy. Let's face it. It's not tidy at all. And for me, there's a lot wrong with that. So I'm saying that even me, today when I look back, if I had my way, the AXA agreement, for instance, I would have done a boot with AXA. Because AXA, as the contract has run to its end, it's a 370 megawatt plant. My information is that government is allowing them to continue to run. Government hasn't renegotiated. Government hasn't come to parliament yet. And yet this AXA plant is being allowed to run. So I think that, look, government might have some good intentions, I don't know. But let's learn to follow procedure, follow due process, do what is right and proper, and serve the interests of this country.
Let me quickly run this by you before I move on to my other guests. So when you look at ASEP's release, it talks about the reaction of the senior staff of the VRA and a few points that they make. One of the highlights is that miscellaneous SA to undertake operations and maintenance activities instead of VRA. And they say VRA, first of all, has the requisite capacity and technical know-how, knowledge, skills, mix, experience, etc. in hydro, thermal, and solar power generation, and can effectively and efficiently undertake the O&M activities. So they get that question out there about capacity out of the way. 2, the VRA undertaking the O&M activities would lead to lower cost of power. That is what they are suggesting to consumers, since VRA's cost of generation is generally lower than that of the independent power producers. They go on to make the point that if the VRA undertakes the O&M activities, any value from it would be for the benefit of Ghanaians and not foreigners, in this case, miscellaneous South Africa. There's also the VRA undertaking the O&M activities would lead to the authority recovering some of the losses to the sum of $11.28 million per month, which you alluded to, Mr. Janapo, incurred under the 5-year AMERI deal. And then moving on, some of the information that has been required from the ministry for more transparency, like Kojo Poku has intimated, a copy of the EPC contract on the relocation of the AMERI Power Plant, a copy of the Public Procurement Authority approval for the contract, a breakdown of the total cost of the relocation, which will also feed into what Kojo Poku has been saying about other dynamics that could be at play, a copy of the request for proposals and notice of request for proposals, a copy of the tender evaluation, confirmation of whether or not it is the same miscellaneous essay company that was engaged in the attempted novation of the AMERI Power Plant in 2018. That is of interest to me, and I'm sure to you as well. And then, finally, copies of all other documents related to the EPC. How relevant are these, and how do you respond to the claims made by the VRA? Very briefly, John.
Yeah, first of all, I would recommend to all of us stakeholders in this whole energy sector to read ASEP's document. It's a well-researched document, and let me commend it. I've had disagreements with them before. Let me commend them. That is how you build a nation. There's no doubt in my mind that VRA has the capacity to run that plant. I'm clear in my mind. There's no doubt. There's no shred of doubt, because I've interacted with them as deputy minister for 4 years, as ranking member, and as a member on the Mines and Energy Committee. And I've read a lot of documents from them. In fact, their comfort zone is the GE plants. And this is a General Electric plant. So there's no doubt. And then the two is the financial. There's no doubt that they can raise the financial capacity to address the financial challenge. So in a nutshell, not to belabor the point, this decision is not in the best interest of this country. Transfer the plant to VRA, let them do the right thing. When they come up with the roadmap, then they will come to you, the minister, and brief you that, minister, this is what we want to do, A, B, C, D. Do a presentation. And when you are satisfied as minister, you give the green light. But when you, the minister, you are leading the whole transaction, negotiating, and then taking it to VRA. No, it's just not time. I'm right. There's everything wrong with this role.
So very quickly, gentlemen, I want us to quickly look at this so then we talk about another crucial issue when it comes to gas. But so for you, John, this will be your final take on this specific matter before we move on. What in the immediate term, what in the immediate term do you want to see? In some 30 seconds, what in the immediate term do you want to see? And what would you do as member of the Energy and Mines Committee of Parliament? What are you going to push for in the immediate term?
Full disclosure, first of all. Where is the contract document? Where is the PPA approval? The cost breakdown? The value for money audit? Why did you arrive at all these issues? Full disclosure, that's one. On the parliamentary front, I'm trying to reach my chief whip. I've just sent him a message. We would escalate this matter in Parliament. If it means a full probe, it means bringing the minister. We also have a session with VRA, because under the Public Financial Management Act, we are supposed to meet all the agencies. We've met GridCo, and that's where the issue of the transformer that Yauche mentioned comes in. They say that if they can boost their transformer, they can still wield this power. So we'll meet VRA as well. We'll delve into all these matters. And you see, all what we want to do is to try as much as we can to save this country. We may not be right, but at least let's learn to do the right thing.
All right. Gentlemen, we have just about 10 minutes to discuss about another 2 or so issues. I want us to make the most of the time. So very quickly, with your sum-up comments, what is the next step as far as this situation is concerned? 30 seconds to Kojo Poku, 30 seconds to Mr. Yauche. I'll start with you, Kojo.
Well, yeah, so like I said, I think there are a lot of questions that need to be answered. So we need further and better particulars from the ministry. The ministry should come and be upfront and center. Look, most of these things are good initiatives. The only problem that it becomes is the way it's implemented. And I have been always in favor of full disclosure and making sure that people don't think that something untoward is going on. That is one. Then secondly, I think that Parliament, which is my brother who is saying that he's reaching his chief whip, they should be the guardians of some of these things because they have the power. Some of us, we just run commentary. So if we can get the parliamentarians to help us make sure the right thing is done, it will be the betterment for all everybody, and also a good economy for the Ashanti Mine area.
Mr. Yauche, your sum-up comments on this as we move on.
But not to rehash what others have said, we need full disclosure and no circumstances and maintenance of the AMERI plant given to any other entity than VRA. And we insist that prioritizing the retooling of the transmission system is a far optimal option than attempts to relocate plants in the country.